Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the Marco DeRay Show, everyone. It is Friday, October 3rd, 2025. Thanks for tuning in to today's show as our week comes to an end. To hear all the relevant groundbreaking news here in the United States and around the world, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Please hit that like button. Don't forget to follow the show and share it with as many people as possible. But let's get ready now for the best hour radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. Let's jump right out of the gate with my first topic of discussion today. And that is that California is on fire yet again. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there was a massive fire that erupted in an oil refinery in Southern California on Thursday night in El Segundo. And firefighters were dispatched around 9:35 p.m. to the Chevron Refinery after receiving calls of smoke in the area, according to authorities. There was billowing smoke, orange flames that could be seen in the sky for miles across the South Bay area. And just for context, the refinery is located right south of LAX, that'd be Los Angeles International. Now, Fire Division Chief Casey Snow with the El Segundo Fire Department told Fox Digital that some of the products, including gasoline and, of course, diesel, were, of course, now burning. Wonderful, right? But witnesses describe the fiery scene as visible for miles. So certainly not a good thing. Air quality, I'm sure, is down in the South Bay and, of course, the surrounding areas as of right now. But what's interesting about this? What's interesting about this to me? How do these things happen in a refinery like such? Of course, I understand you're dealing with flammable gas and what have you. But the fire was mostly contained by 7 a.m. And of course, the fire crews remained on scene to fully extinguish all the flames. And they said that it originated at a process unit in the southeast corner of the refinery. Okay, so now what is a process unit? Well, obviously the refinery consists of various forms of processing units. You're taking likely crude oil and transferring it into gasoline and diesel, jet fuel. Obviously, LAX is right there. It's a prime hub for that, I'm sure. God knows that'll affect all of that. But you're dealing with high pressure volume, rising temperatures, shifting from one compound to the next. You have your crude distillation units, you have the vacuum distillation units. All these things are taking place. But I'm asking myself, how does this happen, though? How do you go from, obviously, being in a facility like this, which should be well up to date, updated, managed, things checked, things inspected, to billowing smoke and flames throughout the sky in the South Bay? How does this happen? Well, any process unit in the refinery can explode due to several different reasons. What are they? You can have excessive temperatures, which can cause equipment to deteriorate over time, leaking, obviously, things like natural gas, not natural gas, but diesel, gasoline, jet fuel, all these things. You can have mechanical failures, you can have human errors, of course, mistakes by the operators, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, ignoring any type of warning signs, not actively pursuing any type of emergency procedures at the right time, and again, inadequate safety systems. How do you have technology that's not been updated, that's not been well maintained? How do these things go without doing so? In California, where it's very highly regulated, the oil sector and the energy sectors. You have defective equipment. That could also be another indicator that something could go wrong. And again, it's equipment that is not designed to withstand the high temperatures or high pressures, and it can lead to failure and, of course, explosions should things happen like that. Now, they're saying it's being investigated right now, but what a shame. What an absolute shame. We're already losing two other refineries in Southern California. Now we're going to obviously have this one up in ruins right now. God knows how long it'll be out of commission. Get ready for your gas price to go up, California, because that's exactly what's going to be happening as a result of this. Gavin Newsom, I don't know if he's made any statements. God knows what he'll say. I mean, he'll probably blame climate change on it. Maybe the refinery was in the sun for too long, or maybe the temperature was too hot. That caused everything to inundate in and of itself and explode, create an implosion. Who knows with Gavin Newsom? Nobody knows. But they did say that no evacuation orders from the area for the residents were necessary. They were put in place by the emergency response, and that nobody was harmed, as far as they know, monitoring this incident. And again, nobody was injured. So at least there's a positive in all of that. So everyone has been accounted for. So good news on that front right now. Bad news for, obviously, the people buying fuel in California. Yeah. Right by Manhattan Beach, El Segundo. Beautiful area, by the way. Absolutely beautiful. So please watch your surroundings, folks. We know how things in California get out of hand, of course. They say everything has been extinguished, so that's good. But watch your air quality for sure. Absolutely. All right, moving on. Let's talk about what's in this Just the News article. It says Trump sets Sunday deadline for Hamas to accept peace deal. Okay, so we've gotten the peace plan, right? We talked about it earlier this week. What were the provisions of the peace plan? Everyone was happy about this when it came through on Monday. What's going on with this? And I told you this was sabotaged by Israel right from the start, and there's several reasons for it. But an agreement has been set that must be reached by Hamas by Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Washington, D.C. time. Every country has signed on, is what Trump said. If this last chance agreement is not reached, all hell, like no one has ever seen before, will break out against Hamas. There will be peace in the Middle East one way or another. Now, I find this, again, very interesting on many respects because we know that the agreement has been changed. We've been told that everything was set. Israel agreed. America agreed. The Gulf Arab states that met with Donald Trump at the UN last week, they agreed to it. So now it's just on Hamas, whom had nothing to do with this negotiation at all. But here are the problems for this. And many people have called this out. They said that Netanyahu came out and was delighted with the agreement, of course. But here's the problem. A few days later, again, we had, well, not a few days. Once Netanyahu got back to Jerusalem, the moment he gets off the plane, he makes a speech saying, of course, that the negotiation for a Palestinian state will never happen. And there's supposed to be about 5 years of time, and then they would look into a Palestinian state. Netanyahu gets off the plane and says, no way. Not going to happen. I never signed on to this. So he's already denying some of the provisions in this bill. Now, what are the Palestinians going to think about this? What would Hamas think about this? It's already being dissected in a way that's more beneficial for Israel than it would be for the Palestinians, both in Gaza and, of course, in the West Bank. Now, Hamas has indicated, again, via the New York Post, that it could reject Trump's peace plan as it only serves Israel's interest and ignores the Palestinian interest. Again, primarily the international stabilization force inside Gaza. So what is that part? Right? Netanyahu says, we'll leave. Then, of course, he's saying we don't really have to leave. So again, things are getting conflated. Things are getting mixed around. So who will govern Gaza? Trump said there'll be this board of peace. Is it going to be Donald Trump? Is it going to be Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of the UK? Larry Ellison of Oracle? Who's going to run this? The IDF still? Why would the Palestinians sign on to this? Again, things are changing. They're not as what they said. So again, I don't expect Hamas to do this. And again, it could have been so wonderful if we had a peace plan that was in place to, again, stop the senseless bombing, which, again, Netanyahu has continued on. I read that for you earlier in the week. The bombing has continued on. But again, they're saying Hamas has been a ruthless and violent threat for many years in the Middle East. They've killed and made lives unbearably miserable. culminating with the October 7th massacre in Israel. Babies, women, children, old people, and many young men and women, boys and girls, are getting ready to celebrate their future lives together. That's what Trump said on Truth Social. What has happened in Gaza since October 7th? Is he honestly going to look to what's happening in Gaza and say this has been totally acceptable? Hasn't violated international law? You've deprived people of food, of water, electricity, basic humanitarian needs, medical care. They wouldn't even let a flotilla with humanitarian aid reach Gaza to help people that are living on tents in the beaches. Homes destroyed, high-level homes now, absolutely destroyed. People getting shot while they're waiting in line at humanitarian aid sites, which again have been decreased in size. Went from 400 to now, I think we have 2, 3, tops, maybe 4. Some people said there's just 1 remaining. Then you've got to trek many, many miles across the Gaza Strip to get to these aid centers run by the Gaza Humanitarian Fund. Again, they're throwing food on the ground, making people wrestle over it. People are getting shot when they're on their way there, passing through the Marag corridor. All these things are happening. I mean, you look at Gaza, it is in ruins right now. And I said to you a couple days ago, I said, this is a prime time for all this to happen. Because now look who's taking over TikTok. It's Larry Ellison, who is, again, a pro-Israel Zionist. Do you think he's going to let any footage about what's happened go through that app? Of course not. You know, Mark Zuckerberg isn't going to let that happen on Facebook or Instagram. Will Elon let it happen on X? Who knows? Maybe. But they're going to try to control the narrative. They're going to try to control the algorithm so you see what they want you to see, not what actually is happening. And so far, they've been pretty successful, except on TikTok. That's the one app they haven't been able to control. But now they're going to be able to control it, of course. And now they have their 14 to 18 influencers right in place to push pro-Israeli, anti-Palestinian content out there. So you don't see the real truth. They don't want you to see the number of people that have been killed, that have been buried under rubble, the destruction of what's happened inside Gaza. Now, some people will say, well, it's collateral damage, it doesn't matter. I've talked to you about this before, though. It does matter. If your stance is that Hamas is in tunnels, underground, and you're going to keep this bombing campaign going on, where you're destroying every single structure inside Gaza, and you know that the people above are obviously the Palestinians, and they're not involved in this, and by the way, over half of Gaza is children under the age of 17 who have nothing to do with what happened on October 7th. You got to ask yourself the question, what is the end goal here? What is the real motive? And the real motive is obviously they want to get everyone out of Gaza. They're still talking about that, by the way. Just thought I'd share that part with you as well. Do I think this is going to happen? I doubt it. I doubt Gaza will allow this to happen. Hamas is not going to come to the table and say, yep, that sounds great. Let someone else rule over us, kick us out of power. No Palestinian state, no real security. What is all this nonsense? I mean, just a bunch of nonsense at this point. You say that there's the idea that in 5 years we could create a Palestinian state. By the way, the United States is the only country that has a real veto power over this. And it does every single time this negotiation comes to the table. It's always the United States that says no to a Palestinian state. So again, why are you putting in this peace plan, so-called, if you're not going to have any real intention of following through on this? They said if Hamas puts their weapons down, again, puts their weapons down, okay, they put their weapons down, they're all dead. That's what it comes down to. Just ask the Iranians about that. It's ridiculous when you think about it. Israel's right now in a 7-front war. Why are they bombing Lebanon right now? Why are they bombing Syria? Why are they bombing in Iraq? We know why they're bombing the Yemenis. Because the Houthis are firing rockets at them because of what they see is happening inside Gaza. And they said, once this ends, we'll stop. They bombed Qatar, a sovereign nation. They bombed Iran, who did not provoke them at all. And now we have them in their final front, of course, controlling our media, and of course, what our influencers say. You talk about meddling, my God. And I believe Trump added this to his Truth Social, so I'll just read it to you. He said, fortunately for Hamas, however, they will be given one last chance. Great, powerful, and very rich nations of the Middle East and the surrounding areas beyond, together with the United States of America, have agreed, with Israel signing on, to peace after 3,000 years in the Middle East, he added. This deal also spares the lives of all the remaining Hamas fighters. The details of the documents are known to the world, and it is a great one for all. We will have peace in the Middle East one way or another. Okay, well, say they don't accept it. What are you going to do? Send troops into Gaza to get them out of the tunnels? Ask the IDF how that's working out, by the way. They're not telling you any of this, by the way. Hamas finds out where these IDF soldiers are that are on the ground, and they've been killing scores of them every single day that this happens. That's why the IDF general didn't want to go in there. And rightfully so. Why the hell would he want to go in there and perform, guerrilla warfare? They want this to stop. They want this, but Netanyahu has persisted on with the bombings. And of course, this idea that he's going to defeat Hamas like this, it's not going to happen like that. We couldn't do it in Vietnam. We're certainly not going to do it here. So I don't know what, like all hell's going to break loose. All hell has broken loose. It's completely unstable in the Middle East right now. So while I told you, the plan when it came out, I said it looks like it has good intentions, but I told you before, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And thank you, Walter Williams, for that quote, because it's absolutely dead on true, accurate. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think Hamas is going to accept this. This has been a very similar deal to ones of the past they've been presented with and rejected. Again, without any real Palestinian state, without any real security for the people of Palestinian descent in both Gaza and the West Bank, I don't see this coming to. If they can't govern themselves, you're going to see more of this. Why would they just sign off on being ruled by somebody else? It doesn't make any sense to me at all. All right, moving on. By the way, too, I want to read this. This is in JNS, Jewish News Syndication.org. It says, not far off threats. Israeli envoy says Hamas capacity in Judea and Samaria. Well, he's just uttering the same thing. This is Danny Danon, who's the Israeli ambassador to the UN. And he told the UN Security Council on Monday of this week, he said that He added that this is the time to move beyond the speeches, theater, and spectacle of last week's General Assembly and face reality. The Israeli envoy compared the assembly of rockets and small workshops in Judea and Samaria, that's what we now call the West Bank, two methods that Hamas has used in Gaza. One workshop found in Tulkarem, some 15 miles from the Netanya on Israel's coast, about the distance between central London and Heathrow Airport. So now they're trying to say that in the West Bank now there's more terrorism, things are happening there that are heating up, and therefore, of course, we can't allow that to become governed by the Palestinians as well, because they're, again, terrorists and can't work. So these are not far off threats, is what Danon told the council. There are weapons built within minutes of Israeli towns and cities, hidden workshops of deaths right on our doorstep. So this is the stance they're going to take to reject a Palestinian state. Now, that's not to say that there aren't these things happening. I can't verify this. I can't say they're not happening, but they're not going to allow a Palestinian state. This is what they're going to use to reject that. And I said in the negotiations, there should be security for both the Palestinians and the Israelis as well. It should not be just a one-sided thing. But they're going to use this, and they're going to use this to reject the Palestinian state. So understand that. You see Mike Waltz chiming in with the same type of information. He's saying, yet again, this example of the council's obsession for a focus on Israel. So expect this to, this conflict to continue on. That's the only thing I can say about all this right now, based on the language I'm getting from what's coming out of Israel and, of course, the backers of Israel in the United States. So expect that war to continue on. And it will continue on, folks. Guarantee it. By the way, in the Hill, they have Trump officially declaring a war on drug cartels. I think we've already been doing that, but I guess officially we've now done it. It says that President Trump has declared the United States is now at war with drug cartels deemed by the White House as terrorist groups. I told you before, the problem with this is not that there are not any types of threats, but the idea that you can just simply label someone a terrorist and do whatever the hell you want with them is a major problem. Like anything, there should be some sort of due process. I think you all could agree on that. What we've seen happening is, again, these boats coming out of Venezuela, so-called drug boats, these little fishing boats that have no chance of reaching the United States, and we're blowing the hell out of them and, of course, killing everybody on the boat and, of course, destroying the boat as well. Where's the due process? How do we go into international waters and just simply blow up a boat that we say is carrying cocaine or whatever type of hard drug on it? The proper thing to do would be to circumvent the boat, arrest everyone on the boat, check the boat, and again, charge the people whom are on the boat with trying to illegally bring in drugs to the United States. That's the way you stop all this. This is why I've told you, we need to make sure our waters are secure. We have ships and submarines that are, again, guarding the United States as we ought to. That's the way to do it. That way we prevent all this. That's why we secure our southern border, and we're doing a great job at doing that. I have to give Trump credit for that. He's doing a hell of a job with the southern border. You secure the border with a barrier, with troops, with Border Patrol security. That's how you do it. You're aware that people can dig under, so you patrol the area. You understand this. But now the Trump administration has stated that the United States is in a non-international armed conflict with these designated terrorist organizations. Now, according to the notice, which was sent by the National Security Congressional Committees that the Hill obtained, said that the president directed the Department of War to conduct operations against them pursuant to the law of the armed conflict. Okay. So, again, the New York Times was the first to report on this notice, of which came after the Pentagon conducted 3 military strikes on boats Trump has claimed were carrying drugs bound for the United States. The attacks killed all 17 people aboard the vessels, at least 2 of which originated from Venezuela, with the administration insisting that they were lawful despite no public proof that the boats contained drugs. Well, again, how can you say it's lawful if you have no idea what's on the boat or who is on the boat? Or if you have any intel on what's on the boat? We have no idea. This is what I'm saying. There needs to be some sort of due process. Otherwise, you can go, sink any ship you want? So long as you say it's filled with drugs coming to the United States? I mean, again, folks, these are fishing boats. You're telling me they're going to make it thousands of miles to the United States shore? I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. I think this is more of a flex, if you will, to simply say, look what we can do to your boats. I don't understand this. There has to be some sort of due process. That would be the right way to do it. You intercept the boat, you stop the boat, you arrest the people on the boat, you check the boat. If you find something illegal, drugs, weapons, bombs, whatever the hell it is, and you charge those people. That's the way to do it. We're not seeing that. We're simply just blowing up a boat saying, hey, we think there's drugs on it. Not the way that I think we should be going about doing it. Now, the notice did not name any of the cartels deemed terrorist organizations, of course, to be targeted, but the Pentagon has not provided a list of designated organizations that are part of this effort. So again, how do we know what's on the boats then? If we don't have intel sharing with us that there's definitely some type of drugs or what have you on the boat, then how the hell are we going to say that we can go out and do this? If there's a drug dealer in a home somewhere, do we just simply blow up a building and say, hey, look, we got them. There are drugs in there. Well, where are they? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, again, I don't know how we can get away with this. Citing a U.S. statute requiring the sitting administration provide reports to Congress about the attacks or hostilities involving U.S. military, The notice again lays out Trump's earlier claims that it was acting in self-defense in striking the boats, thus eliminating the threat posed by the designated terrorist organizations. Well, then you have to determine who's on the boat. If they're posing a threat, again, we have no idea what's even on these boats. So how can you say there's any type of self-defense when they're not attacking you either? This is what else I have trouble with. We've seen the footage of this. The boat's going on, the boat blows up. That's it. It also presents new assertions, including that the administration has determined that cartels' actions constitute an ongoing armed attack against the United States. Well, again, we know that there are cartel members that operate in the United States, and there are people that act as in a kind of courier capacity with these organizations, of course. They sell drugs, they do certain things for them inside the United States, they help with human trafficking. Go watch the movie Sicario. That gives you a pretty good example of how they operate here. But again, you have to arrest these people. And you have to try these people. That's the way you do it. Now, of course, if something happens in that encounter, lives are threatened, of course they're going to use self-defense and combat these people. You identify them, you find out who they're with. But that's the way you do it. You don't just kill people. And that's why I have to say I don't like this approach of just bombing boats. In the Atlantic, I don't understand this. Labeling them as unlawful combatants. Well, but again, you have to identify who these people are. We don't know the names of anyone on these boats or whom they're associated with. Just that there are two of the three boats came from Venezuela. So again, I think Trump's going to get some blowback on that one. I simply don't like the destruction of blowing boats up outside of the United States. It's just, again, not a good look. I wouldn't say so. But somewhere where Trump is doing a great job, again, I told you he's doing a great job on the border. He's totally done a 180 on, obviously, the Biden border failures, of course. I think he's done a great job. And by the way, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, who's fantastic, by the way. This guy is great. I think he should run for a higher office at some point. He's been fantastic on many issues. He's very common sense. He's just does the exact thing that you're supposed to do every single time that I've seen. I mean, I can't say anything bad about the guy. He's been great so far. He's done a great job with Oklahoma. By the way, ICE busts 120 illegal immigrants in this highway crackdown that they have. And this goes to show you that when the state government is working in tandem with the federal government, you can accomplish a lot of things. What do I mean by that? Well, we have the Oklahoma Highway Patrol working with ICE agents, and they arrested 120 illegal aliens during an operation at a port of entry near the Texas border. The plan, dubbed as Operation Guardian, was a comprehensive deportation effort launched by Governor Kevin Stitt in coordination with Oklahoma's Department of Public Safety. The sting took place along Interstate 40, that goes all the way across the country, by the way, where officials found most offenders with unverifiable license. Think about the people coming out of California with these fraudulent licenses, many of whom have no names on them now, which makes, again, absolutely no sense whatsoever. But with these unverifiable licenses behind the wheels of 80,000-pound 18-wheelers. So these people whom are driving these trucks. Remember what happened with our friend in Florida doing an illegal U-turn, couldn't even read the street signs. Didn't understand the traffic laws. An illegal from India gets his license, a commercial driver's license, in the state of California. Back in, 2018? Yeah, thank you, Jerry Browning and company. I mean, look at that. Ridiculous. During the operation, troopers encountered more than 500 people and turned 120 over to ICE, according to officials. So now we have the Department of Safety Commissioner Tim Tipton said that the findings were very alarming, highlighting a very serious safety risk. Many of the licenses were either expired by nearly a decade, so that means what's happening here? They're taking someone's license, or obtaining it fraudulently, which is illegal, by the way, or listed under a single name. Yep, so there's what I told you again. In California, they're giving you IDs that say no name. They're giving you one name. They don't know who these people are. So making identification nearly impossible, yet they're still issuing these out. Yet they're telling you to get a real ID. And again, this is the reason why. They've given so many fraudulent IDs out. Now you need to have a real ID. More proof of that you're an American citizen. So what they're telling you is, if you don't have a real ID, that your ID is basically fraudulent. They can't really verify that it's you. That's the problem with these. And an identification should show that it's you. But back in, I believe it was 2015, don't quote me, 2015 or 2016, the brilliant state AG of California, Kamala Harris, issued 1 million, or allowed the issuance of 1 million IDs to illegal aliens. Now again, you take that ID, you go to another state, you say, oh, I'm here, look at me, here's my ID, boom. They don't know anything about you, they give you a new ID in that state, now you're in a different state with another ID. You can't verify who the hell you are because the state of California allowed this to happen. But they intentionally gave out 1 million, at least 1 million, IDs to illegal aliens. How the hell does that happen? Or again, what they do is what I just said. These licenses are expired. They have no idea if this is the person holding it. So they have an ID that people are using. And this is how they get around. This is how they get around all these things. But again, we know in 2018, they gave that ID, that commercial driver's license, to a guy from India who could barely speak English, didn't understand street signs, didn't understand traffic laws, clearly, does a U-turn on a freeway in Florida and ends up killing people. It's unbelievable. So you don't have a minor collision with a commercial vehicle, is what Tipton goes on to say. An 80,000-pound truck at 70 miles an hour isn't going to be a minor crash. So what he's saying. So he's reiterating what we saw again happen in Florida. Oklahoma's Operation Guardian plan states that the state currently houses about 525 undocumented, that'd be illegal aliens, these undocumented offenders in its prisons, costing $36,000 a day. Now, the plan alleges that 30% of those crimes are violent offenses against children. Isn't that wonderful? 20% are violent assaults. 14% are homicides or other violent deaths. And 7% are sex crimes committed by these people, noting that most of these offenders are from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and Vietnam. Isn't that great, folks? Isn't that great? Kevin Stitt went on to say that the operation is designed to move undocumented offenders directly from state and county custody to the federal deportation proceedings, ending what he calls years of federal neglect. He's absolutely right about that. Can you imagine if every governor was as great as Kevin Stitt, folks, and worked with the federal government when they arrest people like this? They turn them over to the federal government and they're deported. Now, you still have the problem of the people that aren't getting arrested, that are here illegally, of course. But these violent offenders that they're putting back out on the streets or not cooperating with the federal government on is a major problem. And you're seeing this time and time again in blue states, New York, California, Illinois, you name it. They let these people stay in the country. They refuse to cooperate with the federal government, which again, to me, is absolutely ridiculous. You swear an oath to the Constitution, you'll respect and, of course, follow existing immigration laws. And then, of course, they do things, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states. They totally violate their oath of office. And they shouldn't be able to do that. There should be some sort of consequence for these things, and not just the lack of funding money to these states and cities. Oh, by the way, the Daily Express has this article again. 300 ICE agents swarm Chicago apartment complex in Venezuela gang raid. Oh, back to Venezuela. ICE agents swarmed a Chicago apartment complex late on Tuesday of this week and carried out an immigration raid targeting suspected Tren de Aragua gang members. These are the lowest of the low, by the way. But roughly 30 undocumented, I hate when they say undocumented immigrants. Call them what they are. They're illegal aliens. They have no right to be here. I'm going to say it. Roughly 30 illegal aliens suspected of gang affiliation were taken into custody. In a video obtained by the News Nation shows Border Patrol agents walking away individuals in zip-tied handcuffs and line them up outside the residential buildings. During the evening of the raid, U.S. Chief Patrol Agent Gregory Bavino told the outlet that the stress level was high for federal agents. Well, no kidding. Look who they're going against. They're going against some of the most hardened criminals in the world that the Biden administration just let come into the United States. They're given very low resources, of course, and sometimes look what they have to deal with. You saw the video footage in Colorado, when Trende Aragua is going after these apartment complexes, robbing people. They have weapons, again, they should not have. I guess that kills gun safety laws, right? But the individuals they're going after, Trende Aragua, is one of the most violent gangs in the United States now, and is plagued, again, with, they traffic in arms, they traffic in humans, they have little regard for human life, drugs, all these things. And again, they know they have these high-powered artillery weapons. They've been in reports, anyway, taking away these units of these apartment complexes. They do it with force, they do it with guns. They did it in Colorado. We saw this happen, and everyone's like, it's not a big deal. They had camera footage. They're going in and just robbing apartment after apartment with heavy artillery. And we're told, hey, no big deal. They know exactly how to break the door. I mean, they're professional criminals. Now, Bavino told News Nation that the operation proceeded very smoothly after federal agents spent several days training for the targeted enforcement effort to get rid of these people. Look at that. But look at that. You need 300 people to take down 30 illegal aliens. Yep, there we go. This is what's happening in America now, folks. You have criminal gangs getting priority. How do they get in these places? That's what I want to know. How do they get into these places and reside? And nobody says a damn thing about this. Where is the local officials? Now, speaking of local officials, this is in PJ Media. It says neighbors are sick of the Antifa violence and has a message now for Portland's failed leadership. Yeah, Portland's a mess right now, by the way. Now, it's been a long road for many of these neighbors surrounding this immigration and customs enforcement office in Portland's South Waterfront area. Now, for more than 100 nights, the Antifa militants, these criminals, have shot off fireworks, spouted full-throated stupidity through their amplified bullhorns, setting fires, attacking ICE agents, and generally being so disruptive that their sell-by date expired long ago. This should not be happening. I don't know why this is happening. 100 nights you have them putting this barrage against ICE facilities and nothing's being done about it? It's taking us this long? But now help is coming, allegedly. President Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that federal troops are in place in Portland. At least one neighbor welcomed the move and likened it to when President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent troops to force the schoolhouse doors open over the protest of Democrats back in Little Rock. That would be Orville Faubus, who refused to integrate the schools. And, of course, Eisenhower sent in the military to prevent the civil unrest from getting further out of hand. But how does this go on? How is it that we have 100 nights of this, again, breaking ordinance of sound violations, attacking ICE agents, attacking the facilities, setting fires? We saw this happen in Portland, too, during the George Floyd riots, when they tried to set a courthouse on fire with the National Guardsmen inside of it. You all remember that. What happened as a result of that? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You have the governor of Oregon, who's an insane leftist, marching actually with these protesters now, in the front line, marching about what's happening with these ICE agents. It's disgusting. So you see the way Oklahoma handles this in terms of how to respond to illegal aliens. Then you have how Oregon responds to this. They stand up for the illegal alien. They stand against the Trump administration following existing immigration law enforcement. It shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening at all. What about the residents of these cities that have to deal with this crap night after night? You have people that can't go down streets because the Antifa thugs are blocking the street? Who owns the streets? Does Antifa own the streets, or does the U.S. taxpayer own the streets? Does the city own the streets? Well, the problem is the city is fine with it. That's the problem we find ourselves with. When you have the Democrats who are hell-bent on destroying the nation, they're totally fine with Antifa being in the streets, creating chaos, threatening people. I saw one of the Instagram, I don't know if he's Instagram, but he's one of the social media influencers. I forget his name. He does good work. He was on Fox News recently. But he's walking down the street, and one of these thugs tries to follow him, threatens to hurt him, tells him to get out of there. And he's like, hey, listen, I can be here. I'm not doing anything. But this is what we're doing. Why are we dealing with this crap? Why are we letting these pieces of human trash negotiate what's happening on the streets and telling people what they can and cannot do? I'm not for the federal government bringing in the National Guardsmen without due process, of course. But we find ourselves in this position where we have a state government that's out of control. We have local governments that are out of control. We've seen this time and time again. They refuse to cooperate with the federal government, federal law, and it puts people's lives in danger. Not just the ICE agents that have to deal with this garbage day in and day out, but the people that actually live there. How could you have a society when you have ICE in the streets causing all this type of chaos and civil unrest with no type of consequence to it? It makes no sense to me. And it probably doesn't make any sense to you. Where is the leadership? Well, the leadership is behind it. They like it. Where are the local police in Portland? Why are they not stopping this? Why are they not arresting these people? How do these people get to sleep at night when they have people yelling in bullhorns, setting fires, creating all this chaos in the streets? How do they do that? Why do they have to put up with this crap? They don't have a right to do that. Now, the only time the president is allowed to bring in the National Guard or bring in the military is under two conditions. If there is an insurrection at hand against the government, or if there's some sort of rebellion, again, against the government. But they also need the sign-off, of course, of the state governor to come and do that. That's the problem we find ourselves with. Per the Constitution, the president just can't do something. So, again, we find ourselves in these situations where we're in these unprecedented times. How do we stop this chaos in the streets? How do we protect the citizenry if the state government is not going to uphold the law? Again, I don't have the answer for you, but that's the way it should be. Because otherwise, then President Trump can bring in the military whenever the hell he feels like it, which, again, I don't agree with. Now, he's done a great job in the city of, the District of Criminals, I guess. He's done a good job with. He's allowed to do that because it's a federal city. But how do you go into a state's, metropolitan area and just say, we're here to clean up? That's not the role of the federal government. That's not the role of the military either. Unless, of course, one of those two situations occurs, and of course the government comes and says, we need help. Because there's an insurrection or a rebellion taking place. That's the only way you can do it, folks. But you have this happen in California. Gavin Newsom's not going to sign off on that. He likes the chaos. This dunce governor in Oregon, she's not going to sign off on that. If that happened in Oklahoma, you bet your bottom dollar that Governor Kevin Stitt would probably have that locked down in no time. But he would be a part of that. He would want that to stop. He would ensure the rights and the safety of his citizenry. Ron DeSantis would obviously stop that. That's why you don't see these things happen in these red states. It's in these blue states where they know they're coddled by the local and federal government, the state government. Sorry, Biden moment there. And they know they can get away with this. That's why they've been in Portland for 100 nights, causing chaos. This has to stop, folks. Again, there's got to be some sort of precedent that allows Donald Trump to do this. I don't know that there will be. I don't know how the courts would handle this. But if there's unrest where your federal agents are threatened night after night, how does the government respond to that? Simply say, well, it's up to them. They've got to do it themselves. They've just got to try to stave them off. I mean, I don't know how you do this. Night after night, they're trying to break the federal government. That's what's happening here. And I fear that that is being successful in some regards if they're not having any sort of consequences or very limited consequences. But again, these Democrats, they support all of it. That's why these people get away with it. Oh, by the way, Paul Craig Roberts has a great article out today. Fantastic, by the way. It really reflects where we are as a people, as a nation. And it says democracy is a fraud, a cover for rule by private interests. What does he mean by that? Well, he's talking about the political campaign contributions by the uber wealthy, not the voters, of course, that elect the president, of course, members of the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House, obviously the governors, people that support them. But consequently, these elected representatives represent these private interests then that fund their whole campaign. Obviously. I mean, again, if you have someone who's donating what? Millions of dollars to you every single election cycle, you don't think they're going to be bidding for some sort of leniency or certain interest they have or some sort of law or legislation they want? We've seen this time and time again. Go watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington if you want to see what that's all about. And that was back in the 1930s. But, democracy serves as this sort of cloak. It's sort of a guise that hides the fact that the government belongs to the private lobbies, the people with the money, or the PACs that have the people represented, that purchase these people. It's bought and paid for. In every election cycle, the emphasis is on getting the vote out. But that is done with the money, the big money. So there is no democracy in terms of elections, as long as the money determines the election's outcomes and thereby the public policy later on. So obviously there is no public policy that serves the general public's interest. It doesn't happen that way. So again, why do Americans believe in the hoax of democratic rule? Or that it works. That's what I'm saying. But why did the Supreme Court rule that it is a First Amendment right for organized lobbies to purchase the government? And again, I think that really needs to be looked at. He goes on to talk about, in this article, he says, in 1973, Alvin Rabushka and I, in an article published in the journal Public Choice titled A Diagrammatic Exposition of an Economic Theory of Imperialism. Now, in the article, he's talking about him and the other gentleman, introduced the concept of the imperial paradox. So the point that we made was that whereas imperial rule is considered exploitative, in actual fact, it extracts less resources than a democracy, right? What we're talking about here, with the private interest, responding to organized interests. So the reason that the organized interest in democracies are shielded by the assumption that the government is acting on the public's interest, whereas an imperial regime is assumed to be acting on its interest. But here we go. The imperial exploitation is recognized and resisted, right? We talk about imperialism or colonialism, very similar of which they do, right? Where the government acts in its own interest. Whereas this exploitation by organized interest in a democracy, right, the people that buy and pay for these politicians, that get what they want, get the tax breaks they want, get the legislation or the regulations they want lost, are protected under the rubric of serving the public interest. And nobody questions the donor class or these lobbies that continually go to D.C. And again, they work on these politicians to get what they want. Think about AIPAC. We've talked about that, one of the most well-known ones, right? So we talk about these things, but we also have, the liberals maintain that government regulation restricts this exploitation by these private interests. But then again, you have things, obviously, like we witnessed during COVID, during the pandemic with the FDA, which is a government organization, the CDC, the Center for Disease Creation and Production, and of course the NIH that serve big pharma's interests, right? Their profits, all that. Not the public's health. That was the least thing they gave a damn about. You had Fauci, the pill pusher himself, telling everything's safe and effective, when of course it wasn't. Then they got government organizations like OSHA to coax businesses to mandate that you get the shot, otherwise you're terminated. You saw that happen in the federal government. So, it's a big revolving door, but it's all about private interest. What does the donor class want? What do the people that give the most money want? And you just saw this recently with Donald Trump and Pfizer, where the government's now going to be investing $70 billion into them. What the hell does Pfizer need $70 billion for? For more research? What, really? Are you kidding me? Look at their COVID shot and how deadly it is. Just one of their many vile products that they sell. It's disgusting. It really is. And of course, they buy the commercials you see on television. Every other commercial. I mean, I rarely watch television, but I will watch the news. And, every other commercial. Take this pill for that. Take this pill for that. Are you experiencing this? Take this pill. Shove this down your throat. Don't worry. We've got your back. It's absurdity. But again, this is another way, of course, which they buy things. They buy certain ads on a television network. They pay lots of money for it. And they make sure that the people of whom, whether the show or whatever, never questions them whatsoever. It works just like that. Don't believe me? Go try it sometime. Now, everywhere in the Western world, there is a movement away from the government accountable to people, which is what democracy is supposed to deliver. Now, indeed, the model for European progress is tyranny and, of course, not democracy. Just go look what's happening in the UK with the digital ID right now. Go look at what they're doing. Do you think that's in the best interest of the people? To tie them down to all this nonsense? But the European Union has been constructed as a powerless elected parliament. None of these parliaments do anything for the people. It's really the power of the European Commission, of which is, again, appointed. And it doesn't serve their interests very well, I would have to say. Look at the way illegal immigration is done, the European countries in. The vast majority of them are slowly but surely dying, losing their own identity, losing their own culture, certainly losing their religion. And that's the point of it. They are trying to destroy and sabotage these nations. So now you have the attack on democracy is seen everywhere in the West. For example, we have free speech as the bedrock of anything you could have to hold government accountable. Yet free speech is under attack in every single one of these Western countries as anti-Semitic. You have racism, homophobia, offensive language, hate speech, even terrorists now. Yep, even terrorists. So you can't have a conversation. You're limited as what you want to say because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. No, that'd be terrible. That'd be awful if you hurt somebody's feelings of whom you don't even know who the hell they are. But the liberal left regards free speech as a hindrance to the woke ideology. People have forgot what they once understood. That their own governments are their greatest threat to the liberty of their own. And I think our founding fathers understood that. They knew that quite well. And that's why they gave us the First Amendment, the Second Amendment for sure, the right to bear arms, to protect ourselves. That we have rights that the government cannot take away from us, even though they love to cut up the First Amendment, cut up the Second Amendment. They violate the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. They do it all the time. It happens when, one, you have a stupid population, and the other is that people don't call it out because you have a news media that's bought and paid for the reasons I just admitted to you. All right, moving on. Let's move on, right? I got to go over this article, but I had two more I wanted to go over. We'll see if I can crunch them in here today. I know I'm running out of time here. This one just made me shake my head this morning when I read it. I couldn't even believe this. But it just shows you the fact that whoever's in charge is very important because they appoint several people, nominate several people to certain positions that affect your life every single day. This is in the East Bay Times. It says, a judge released an Oakland man with a pending murder charge. Now he's a fugitive in a new killing. Isn't this wonderful? I'm going to read this to you. This is going to make you shake your head. But this is the world we live in now. Months after a judge praised an Oakland murderer defendant as a wonderful young man and released him from jail, police in Stanislaus County in California have publicly identified him as an armed and dangerous fugitive who allegedly killed a man last month. This just makes you shake your head. This is why the government fails you. The people who are supposed to protect you, the prosecutors, the judges, they let these people go. And then the only one more people get hurt. But Keontae Reed, 19, was released from jail in January of this year by Alameda County Judge Elena Condes, and for the next several months was deemed compliant in an Alameda pretrial release program. But then came September 9th, when Reed was wounded in a shootout almost identical to the one that led up to his Oakland murder case. Okay. A little bit of recidivism here. Not too bad. Okay. He was hospitalized and jailed on suspicion of gun possession, then freed from custody according to court records. But then, on September 19th, he allegedly shot and killed a man in Riverbank in Stanislaus County, as record shows. Now, Stanislaus is inland California. It's northern California, but it's inland a little bit more. A little bit southeast of where Oakland is, in the Bay Area, for those that know. But on October 18th, 2024, Reed was charged with murdering a 50-year-old man named Lamar Payne in a September 7th, 2024 shootout outside a Go-Go Amigo market in East Oakland. Police say Reed and two other men began firing at one another and that Payne was killed during the shootout. A second suspected gunman was identified as 21-year-old Mackay Adams and was charged with murder this year. A third suspect, 22-year-old Tamarcus Killingsworth, was arrested for allegedly pulling a gun during the incident, court records show. Now look at this. They go through all these people saying what a great guy this 19-year-old Reed is and everything. Nonsense. Here's what the mother said. Again, they read these in court to get these people off. Here's what the mother said from Reed's mother, saying that it was mind-boggling that Reed would end up as a murder defendant. Yeah, it's shocking. My boy is a great kid. He's smart and a big help in my family. I love the way he interacts with his siblings. No matter what the situation is, you can count on him. Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at that. Judge Condes said that at the first apprehension about releasing Reed, noting it appeared from surveillance footage that he fired at people who were retreating from the shootout. Not bad. Okay, all right. A little bit of a red flag there, I think. Past self-defense for sure. When she eventually signed off on his release to house arrest at a relative's home in Lathrop, Condes cited his enrollment at Laney College and the fact that Reed had been shot twice in Oakland since moving there from Las Vegas at age 16. So just 3 years ago, getting shot at twice since then. Here's what she says to him. You sound like a wonderful young man. I'm taken aback by this. A wonderful young man. You're 19 and you're killing people and you sound like a great guy? I am sure you are meant for much better things. Oh, well, not bad. Okay, all right. He's meant for better things, all right. We all want to give everybody a pat on the back. Okay. But here's the reality of the situation. Almost 1 year later, to the day, Payne was gunned down. Reed returned to the same store, right? So the same store that we just talked about, that incident, all that mess. He comes back, maybe a deja vu. He came back, he sleepwalk. Who knows what he's doing? Returned to the same store, allegedly armed with a .40 caliber pistol. And the same thing happened yet again. This time around 11 a.m. on September 9th, police responded to the report of a shootout outside the Go-Go Amigo market. They discovered 2 piles of casings, found Reed, wounded by a 9mm pistol, hiding with a handgun next to him. Wonderful, wonderful. Police say the man who allegedly shot Reed was identified as Devontae Lau, 33, and arrested on gun charges during a September 18th traffic stop. Fantastic. All right, at the time of Reed's arrest last year, Oakland police said he was known to sell marijuana near the store. All right, so someone was creeping up on his turf and he shot him. Okay, or maybe they tried to stiff him. Reed, hospitalized, listed in stable condition, and once cleared by doctors, he was booked into Santa Rita jail on suspicion of a gun possession charge. At a court appearance the following day, Alameda County prosecutors made no motion to detain him for the allegedly possessing a gun charge. Nor did they end up charging him in the September 9th shooting. That's amazing to me. You have a 19-year-old shoot somebody, a legal gun charge, and they make no attempt to even charge him with this. He was released from jail within days of his arrest with the intention to appear on court for October 1st. That would be a couple days ago. However, around 4 p.m. on September 19th, in Stanislaus County's Sheriff's Department responded now to a report of a shooting in the 100 block of Klaus Road in Riverbank, where they found Marquise Owens dying from gunshot wounds. Later pronounced dead later that day, and investigators identified Reed, yes, the good old Reed, as the suspect. And on September 23rd, the sheriff's office issued the public alert to be on the lookout for Reed. Reed did not show up for his October 1st court appearance in Oakland. And so a judge issued a warrant for his arrest there too. So just 3 months ago, an Alameda County probation officer wrote that Reed appeared to be largely successful on a pretrial release, despite not proving that he'd enrolled in a GED program. They went on to say about the excellent Reed, whom I'm sure we all could look up to. The defendant is a new father and appears to participate in the child's life and upbringing on a regular basis. He's actively taking classes in parenting. Actively going to the gun range, too, it sounds like. I added that part in there. The report says, later quoting a class superior who said, overall, Mr. Reed has shown commitment and progress in his reunification efforts. I mean, this could be a story. I mean, maybe Hollywood could pick this up. Who knows? I mean, God. It's amazing. By the way, Hollywood is, the entertainment industry economy is looking like a disaster right now. You could read that in the Washington Journal if you decide to. But I want to go over one more article. We're a little over time. I'm going to finish this article so we can finish off the week right. This is in Breitbart. It says that Sonny Hostin says Christian gun owners are hypocrites and not pro-life. Can you imagine this? Not to Sonny Hostin telling everyone they're not pro-life because they're gun owners? Because they believe in the Second Amendment, the right to defend oneself, one's family. Maybe even from people like Reed here. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? Maybe Keontae Reed's around your neighborhood. Who the hell knows? You might need to defend yourself. But they play a clip from Pope Leo, and he was asked a question about old Dick Durbin from Illinois about receiving some type of award, even though he's pro-choice, which means he's pro-murder, of course. And, he says this. Take a listen.
Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life.
Yeah.
Trump is thinking, can I deport him? I think he's right. If you are pro-choice and pro-death penalty, you're at least consistent.
Yeah, I mean,
I said the other way, you would be consistent also, right? If you are anti-choice and anti-death penalty, that means that you are pro-life, right?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I've said it on this show many times. I am at least, and you and I have had this discussion, I am at least consistent. As a Catholic, a lifelong Catholic, I am against abortion. I'm also against the death penalty. I'm also against guns. I'm also against the starvation of children. I'm a humanitarian above all because I believe that all life is precious.
So you're against...
All life is precious. Yeah. Listen to the way she talks about Republicans, conservatives, Donald Trump. Have you ever heard her say one positive thing about Donald Trump? They try to dehumanize him every single show. Look at this. I'm against the death penalty in all cases. In all cases. That's why I find there is a hypocrisy with certain Christians who are pro-life, but they will pull that electric chair switch. They are pro-life, but they have AR-15s in their cabinet. They are pro-life, but they don't mind immigrant families being torn from each other. That's a big lie. They are pro-life, but they don't care about little children's subsidies being taken away from them. That is not pro-life. Well, here's the problem I have with Sonny's position here. It doesn't make too much sense. First of all, we have to understand biblical terms, right? What does the word killing mean in the Bible? Now, the term can encompass a range of actions, including lawful acts of self-defense, capital punishment, or killing in a war. And again, the biblical prophecies acknowledge situations where killing is permitted. It's in Exodus 22:2. That allows for example, self-defense against a thief. So if you have Kevonte Reed showing up to do you harm, and he's a hardened criminal with intent to kill you, you have a right to defend yourself against that threat. That's something different. When we talk about abortion, we are talking about murder. And again, biblical terms have a different meaning. Murder is defined as the unlawful and intentional taking of a life. That's what Keontae Reed just did. Killing somebody. That's what it is. Premeditated murder. Ted Bundy was a murderer. John Wayne Gacy was a murderer. This is what you're seeing. They are two different things. Genesis 9:6 states to us, that whoever sheds human blood will have their blood shed, indicating a recognition of lawful killing under certain circumstances. So obviously she's not a very, religious person. She doesn't really understand what she's talking about, of course. Now, we love to just turn the other cheek, as the New Testament tells us. But there are people out there that wish to do us harm. It's just true. That's what it is. People wish to do us harm. And the idea that you're a bad person because you want to see a murderer receive consequences? How about Ted Bundy? Let's go back to Ted Bundy. Why not? I read a lot about Ted Bundy many times. Ted Bundy was a major serial killer who preyed on young women, who escaped from prison twice, by the way, and went on to continue to kill people. In fact, he went all the way down to Florida to continue to kill people. Killed 4 more people, including a 12-year-old young girl. Discarded her body in, I believe, a pig pen, of all things, after raping her. This is the kind of person you want alive? This is a murderer. A murderer. Ted Bundy was killed in the electric chair in Florida. He was killed. He wasn't murdered. He was killed. There are two totally different things. There are people that have no regard for human life, and there are people that hold other people accountable. There are two totally different things. And to suggest that because you want to see the comeuppance of people that have greatly ended innocent life are two totally different things. They're not even comparable. I don't expect the ladies on The View to understand that, even though I think they were having a decent moment there. They don't seem to understand it very well. All right. Yep, they try to conflate it too. It doesn't work out. I mean, come on. At least in my mind, it doesn't work out that way. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed this show today. Hope you'll share the show with some friends. Hope you have a blessed weekend ahead of you too. It seems like the weather all across the U.S. is going to be very nice. So, hope you do something meaningful, blessing, and fulfilling. Hope you do that. Share the show with some friends. Make sure that you're keeping your house in order, of course. Food, water, storage of any type of ammo, gold, money, anything you need to be self-sufficient. And I'll catch you here on Monday on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless each and every one of you.